of Diwan Bookstores. On behalf of Diwan, I welcome you all who are joining us from all over the world to our second webinar with international Enneagram masters and teachers. This series of monthly webinars came from a long and fruitful cooperation between Diwan Bookstores and the Egyptian affiliate of Enneagram International Association, or International Enneagram Association. Through this cooperation, we were able to identify and provide in our stores the most important Enneagram books to be valuable for the Enneagram community in Egypt. And today we are going to discuss the book of by Helen Palmer, Enneagram in Love and Work. So we're very extremely excited and honored to be hosting today in this webinar the Enneagram master and teacher Helen Palmer. Helen Palmer is the founding director of the International Enneagram Association. She's also a co-founder of the Narrative Enneagram School, which trains and certifies presenters of the Enneagram worldwide. Helen presents the Enneagram from inside out through seminars, workshops, and online courses. She's also a published author. Currently, her books are translated in 28 different languages and sold in millions of copies. Also with us today, I'd like to introduce two key Enneagram figures in Egypt. They will be leading the conversation today with Helen, and they will relay your questions that you will write in the chat. First, I welcome Tamer Zanetti, Executive Coach, Facilitator, Trainer, and the Vice President of the Awareness to Action International. He's also the Managing Director of Powerhouse Consulting and Training, and he's the President of the Enneagram affiliate of the International Enneagram Association, as well as a member of the global board of the same association. Tamer's main mission in life is to support leaders in their transformation journey and to have an impact on transforming the life that we all share into the life that we as humankind deserve to live and to experience. Also with us, Islam Abu Kandil, Enneagram instructor and coach. Islam Abu Kandil is an Egyptian-Canadian coach who is deeply passionate about supporting individuals to transform their life from the inside out. Islam has studied Enneagram with Helen Palmer and David Daniels through the Narrative Tradition School. Islam is the founder of Transcend, a company dedicated to transformation. So I welcome all of you, and I leave it to you to start our webinar, which is going to be streamed on our Facebook page. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amal. Actually, I would like first to thank Helen Palmer for accepting our invitation for this webinar. Helen is really one of the top figures that started all the knowledge that we are living upon in the Enneagram nowadays. And I would like also to thank Diwan Bookstores for the partnership and number of webinars that we started last month for authors of top books of the Enneagram. And I would like also to thank you, Islam, for being with me in this webinar, hosting our guest speaker, Helen Palmer. Helen, thank you very much for this, for your acceptance to be with us today.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you.
Provided you ask the questions, then I just have to answer. I don't have to come in with a stream of wise things to say.
Yeah, I would like to say that I've been really dreaming to meet you for a long time, reading your books and knowing that you are one of our top teachers. And I had the pleasure and honor to meet you in the last IEA conference in Auckland.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for me like a pleasant meeting, because I've seen you this top figure of the Enneagram. And when I met you, I have touched this human part of you. You're not taking yourself seriously at all. We've been dancing in the party, and really this taught me a lot about how to come across as a professional in this world, especially if you are the top one. So, I just wanted to say that because that really touched me a lot.
Yeah, I like to dance after the meetings. There's music and the people are relaxed and they're not on stage being frightened about their point of view being delivered. No, I had a very good time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. So let me start with one question, like warming up. How did you start with the Enneagram? What was your starting point?
Well, for many years, I taught psychology in a college in my area of California. And in my 10th or 11th year of teaching, I was beginning to get very aware of the narrowness of the academic view of psychiatry and psychology at that time. And it just wanted to remain that way. People were entrenched in these beliefs of diagnosis, assessment, and treatment strategies. So everybody, you know, gets evaluated who comes in for help, but it was kind of inhuman. There wasn't a human touch to it so much, except, you know, when you found a very good counselor and you went to them for a long time. But there wasn't one breath about being able to change that habit. You could reduce the diagnosis so that it became normal. So now we have a normal neurotic who hasn't really changed the pattern from which they operate. It just isn't so intense anymore that it has become destructive, yeah? So I looked at that and I said, you know, maybe we could change the whole pattern. You know, there must be some intervention. I mean, you know, God didn't wish us to be suffering, but we all do, you know? And so at the same time that I had this disregard from the smallness of diagnosis, assessment, and a treatment strategy, you know, yes, there was change involved, but there was nothing having to do with changing your state of mind, being able to actually relax the whole pattern as it unfolded automatically. There wasn't a word about that. And yet, at the same time that I was teaching psychology, I became very interested in meditation. And I became a pretty solid meditator. I stuck with it. And it was so relieving to discover that when I was in turmoil, I'm a 6 on the Enneagram, it's a fear type. And so when I became anxiety-driven or apprehensive, if I could change my state to a state of meditation without any other intervention, except the change of placement of attention internally to me, that it did wonders for my anxiety level. And so I started to deepen my interest in teaching and to bring these, what I saw as placements of attention or methodologies from different streams of religious persuasion. Every religion has a prayer practice, but to rely upon it to improve or change the habit of our suffering. I'm a 6 on the Enneagram. I suffer from anxiety. Well, let's relax anxiety, was my idea. And that was, am I on?
Yeah.
Am I off?
Let's
Are we hanging in between here?
Sorry for that. Please go ahead. Helen.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Well, I'll just talk. Anyway, that was my new hypothesis, and I tried it out on my students, my university students who were training to be counselors. And also I had a small clinical practice, so I worked with them as well. And it was mind-boggling. Remember, this is way back, you know, this is before I wrote the first book, which is 1988. So I was moving into a kind of an unexpected difficulty with the psychiatric community, you know, because to introduce the idea of changing your state of mind through prayer or meditation, I mean, it was just like voodoo or, you know, like something out of the blue. You would not speak about that in polite society. So of course I talked about it a lot, right? And the first book came out of that, the Enneagram, Understanding Yourself and the Others in Your Life. The main thing there was to be able to understand yourself, to be able to get your recognition of your own type structure. That was very, very important. And so a publisher took it up, a mainstream publisher in the United States. And despite all of this clamor from the academic community and the spiritual community about don't use psychological work and confuse it with spirit, and the spiritual people, you know, who are saying that was their, you know, banner, no psychological work. This is all spiritual work. Meanwhile, people are suffering from anxiety and anger and envy and pride and all of those problems. So I didn't pay much attention to the objections. And the mainstream publisher, HarperCollins, they came through and they said, look, we're going to try this. And they defended me. They put it forward in a good way. And they handled all the negative mails that came in. And I didn't have to bother with that. So from that, a small group of people, maybe 100, but, you know, certainly not the thousands of people involved now in the Enneagram, a few came together and they said, well, we would like to be able to teach this very simple intervention, that when you suffer according to your type, if you're a 4, you're going to have envy. When you can internally witness, that's a key word, witness or recognize, I'm going into deep water here. I'm in familiar territory, but I don't like it here. Maybe there's something I can do to change this. Because you can recognize by just bringing your attention inward to when you begin to go on a repetitive habit of mind, of your thoughts, and a corresponding emotional contraction, which suppresses your life force, your chi or your life force, your shakti, whatever you call it, or your grace. It just suppresses all of that. And so you have no resource to be able to refuel yourself and change your automatic pattern of habit. Just be able to relax it. You cannot use your will to force it to change. If it's a 4 type and envy is there, you can't use your will to change it, like I won't be envious or I won't be angry. You know, that's a losing battle. But if you can just recognize it, and the recognition internally is a very important spiritual theme, because there must be a part of you that is already free that can silently observe this habit as it begins to unfold yet again automatically. So that was a very easy hypothesis, and this group of people that were interested in this kind of consciousness change, they began to get enrolled in the fact that they could teach or mention this new method to their family. It started like that, to their family, to their friends. And
Wow.
then, yeah, please.
Yeah.
And that was before the second book, which is the one
Yes.
that we are mentioning here, which is the
Yep.
Enneagram in Love
That's
and Work.
1994. So that was a period later. By then, this kind of word of mouth and the enrollment of certain, you know, key figures that we knew in the university system, well, maybe we could try this spiritual intervention for psychological distress. Maybe we could just try it. Right? So it started to steamroll all on its own. And then HarperCollins wanted a second book, which is the one that you mentioned. Yeah. And that was about interpersonal reactions, interpersonal relationships between different types of people. And so let's stick with that since it's your topic. The main theme is that we have this idea that other people are wired and that they think and receive information in the same way that we do. That's not true. Each individual has a very different view screen. And when you look at it psychologically through the lens of psychology, the different types of people that are organized into a fearful type, an anger type, a type that has a passion, you know, for helping other people. That would be the 2 on the Enneagram. When you have that kind of urgency, you think, and you think you're doing the right thing, and somebody comes up with a different point of view, you know, you feel astounded in a certain way. How could you have so misread the situation? You know? So I wrote a book on interpersonal relationships, and that's the one you have. And the relationships are about how to be able to interface better, with more awareness, with more consciousness, with another type of person who sees the world quite differently. So seeing the world quite differently, you know, they have to be able to explain themselves. And then they get interested in how different we are, the 2 of us, and how we see the same person so differently, you know, the same new friend, we might see from totally different angles. And this was like an area of inquiry that had not been opened yet. And that was what I did. I opened it. So the book is structured about the different layers of your own type structure. And it's very important to know which type of person you are and that you're different. You don't think the same way about things that the other 8 might do, that the other 8 might come to a different conclusion. Mm-hmm. And that all of these different conclusions are perfectly fine as long as it doesn't get into, you know, like a kind of argument. My assessment is a whole lot better than your assessment. You must be mistaken. I'm right. You see, because if you shake that pedestal of certainty, it opens the whole question about, well, you know, have I been seeing reality differently than other people? Mm-hmm. Well, who's got the right version? But they're all correct. Each one of them has its own integrity and is correct. So that's how it all came about. And then the idea of individual differences was huge, especially with couples or, you know, people that are in a new relationship. It's very important to know that, you know, the partner isn't going to see you in the same way that you see yourself. And that might be very positively or very negatively or just in the middle somewhere. But the investigation of how different we are was, it was a contribution actually to psychology, and it got taken into the college system, you know, to be able to say, well, people are different from each other, instead of this is how you treat everybody the same. People are very different from each other. And the diagnosis, assessment, and treatment strategy method, it kind of went into the background. And in the foreground came, okay, can I internally witness? Let's go back to that. Can I internally inside myself? If you're listening to this, you might want to follow in. Come into yourself. Now, can you tell with your attention, can you place your attention point in the middle of the room? Just go there with your attention. Can you place your attention 1 foot above your head? Can you go there? And you will notice that the front of you disappears and the top of the head point of view appears. You can only hold 1 focus at a time, not 2. And this is very important in terms of the modern world. Can you take your attention down into your body and down through your chest? Can you do that? Well, if you can, why are we doing this? But also, how is it that I can recognize placements of attention in space as long as I stay in the present moment? I can't travel into the past or future. That way lies habit. But in the present moment, everything is possible. It has not yet been wired into this automatic response system called a type structure. Now, can you drop your attention down through your chest and into your belly? It's very simple. You just drop in and be carried by the breath in the belly. And let everything else go away for a little while. Everything else goes away. And you're in the present moment. And how do you know this? Well, because my thoughts aren't here. My emotions are quiet. And I can feel the breath in my body. My ability to receive freshness of energy in the body. That's here too. When everything else goes away. Now here we have an entrance state into meditation, which requires emptiness. But now just open your eyes and stay inside yourself. Open your eyes, stay inside. Can you do that? That's a little difficult because everything out there is moving and, you got to be alert to that and you get distracted. So meditation is simply the ability to relax distractions and come inside yourself. And without doing anything else except letting go thoughts, letting go emotions, letting go the contraction in the diaphragm that prevents you from getting a full tank of air. You just let go. And you come back to normalcy. Now, how do you know how to do this? If it's not a thought, how do I know to recognize inside of myself where I am? And if it's not an emotion, if that's been relaxed through contemplation, meditation, if I'm alone inside of myself here, why does it feel so good? I've got a tank full of energy coming up that is prior organized into all of the, dealing with traffic, dealing with, job and dealing with what do I do next, but not here. It's a tremendous inner resource. And it turned out that right at the time that I wrote the book in 94, if you'd open your eyes just a moment, there was a kind of new wave in medicine. And they discovered that if you could relax resistance, that's the key word, this resistance that we have of the automatic habit of our type, what we think, how we react emotionally, and how we suppress chi or energy in the body, that all disappears in prayer or meditation. You're not distracted. How can you tell the difference between being empty and being caught by the habit of mind, the thought pattern that is your type's thought pattern, and then that takes you away? And the new wave in psychiatry at that time was thinking about each of these thought patterns is absolutely genuine and necessary. But they are repetitive thought patterns. You can't change it very easily. However, when you're inside and receptive to whatever comes, that's the state of meditation. You're not distracted by your ordinary patterns of mind. You're open to whatever comes. Now, that was thought to be very frightening at the time. Why would people pray and meditate? In order to be empty of distractions. What's the benefit of that? Well, then science came along and they discovered what was called the relaxation response. And they measured the difference in healing rates between people who meditated, who prayed deeply, and those who remained in their type structure automatically and did nothing to try to relax it. They weren't taught that way. They didn't know how. So the relaxation response was an entrance into a state that improved healing rate by leaps and bounds. So if you had a wound and it had to heal, they would test, is the relaxation response able to improve the rate of healing? And it did. And that was news to everybody. And it was a real blessing, to me, because I realized that these two very different states of mind affect each other. One is the automatic response of the pattern of the type, and the other is this other state of mind that is type free. And there's a kind of joy in it, because when you relax thoughts, emotions, and the contraction against the life force sensation, there's a kind of a joy in it, because the life force is healing. So that got me into a whole line of thinking about what psychological counseling could be. And to be able to put those two sectors of profession together, the clergy, the sacred, and the conditioned, the one who is learning a job, a skill, they coexist in the same man's brain, the same woman's head. They coexist. And then science came to our rescue again, because it turned out that we could measure brain waves through MRI, which is magnetic resonance imaging. It was new and news, and it was such a boost to the meditators, one of whom was me. Now I had some evidence, and it became evidence-based science that really is turning around this whole concept that we have of suffering, of our individual suffering, because the types are constructed as understanding an automatic pattern of thinking, a sorting system that goes on, which you can measure on an MRI screen, and being able to be clear in your mind to receive objective reality. Subjective reality is the automatic pattern of your type. So the 6, when I'm on automatic, my type would be very anxiety prone. Am I up to this? Can I do it? You say, will I be successful? That kind of thing. But noticing that, and again, that's the witness that is rarely mentioned, still is not mentioned in psychological training. The inner witness is a spiritual capacity that we all have. And it's there at birth. Now, how do I know that? How do I know it's there at birth? Well, just one small illustration, and then I'll change tactic here. But the thing about being born, a very young child, 2-3 months, that recognizes the face of the parent. They don't think, they don't have any neural tracks much yet. It's all kind of blank in there. It has to be filled in with experience to build up the tracks. But looking at the face of the caregiver, they smile, they recognize. That is the witness in its rudimentary form at birth, can recognize the caregiver and smiles. And the caregiver walks away and some stranger comes and they start to get agitated and they start to be upset and, where's mommy? A very young child has the capacity to witness their own type structure. Witness the caregiver different than somebody else. That was very meaningful to me. That this capacity to witness, to observe, first of all, you got to find your type. You got to observe. You got to talk to people. Then, if you found your type, you see, it's like, well, I don't like a lot of this. So I'm not going to tell anybody about it because they might not like me if they know that I'm scared, or they know that I'm envious, or they know that I'm angry a lot, or they know anything about me. So I'm just going to go away from this. But if you start to really examine it, you can change it. Be less angry, less frightening, by simply introducing the relaxation response. Call it prayer if you like, I do. But the relaxation response at the time that it starts to escalate and run away with you, and you come to a wrong automatic conclusion. It's like that.
I would like to take.
Please go ahead.
I would like to take what you just mentioned into a deeper level by asking you, how can someone be in a relationship being vulnerable, open to his partner or her partner, without the fear of being judged by him or her?
Well, you can't. So you have to change. You have to build trust in the partner. But as you stated it, you know, there's a lot of concern about this. How can I really tell you about myself? But how do you know yourself? I mean, can you articulate? Now, you and I know our types, and we know that, you know, what we're made of, what makes us feel secure and what makes us feel insecure. But if you're starting with new people, if they could only go inside of themselves and say, well, you know, what do I really value in myself? And it's always there. Go inside yourself. What do I not value about me? Let's keep that hidden. We don't want to distress this person that we want to make a relationship with. So it stays hidden. It goes unconscious. That does not mean it's inactive. It means it goes subconscious. You don't know you're doing it. You see? So it's a choice. Okay, I don't like this thing about myself. Maybe I'm feeling afraid that I'm not affluent enough. I don't have enough money, or something like that. Or another thing, you know, I don't know if I can keep this person that I'm attracted to. I don't know if I can keep them, you know, interested in me. You know, what do I have to do to keep them bound to me in some way? I don't know how to behave, but I do know that I want this relationship. So it would be so useful, especially if you're young and in an early relationship, to be able to come inside of yourself and say, look, I know me first. I know how I work. And investigate. Take it upon yourself to investigate by, you know, saying, well, I don't like this. If you're an 8, for example, I don't like the fact that I take over too much. You know, I'm too assertive. I think that makes me strong. You make a list, you know, it makes me strong. It makes me capable. I get respect. Nobody bothers with me. They let me do my thing. I'm a good leader. I'm a good person to protect other people. I have all of these good qualities and also the not so good qualities, you see? So the important thing is to know your assets inside. Like, I know that I have a good acute mind. And yes, I'm a little anxious. So maybe if I relax the anxiety whenever it occurred, I'd build a new habit so that I could just not be so anxious without having to tell anybody or announce it that I'm a scaredy cat. So the idea is to be able to get a handle on it internally in yourself, because other people can't change you. Only you can change you. They can give you influences, but they cannot change your pattern of thought. Okay? All right, so please, could you ask another question?
Yeah, let me ask you a question. I mean, this book was published 1994, and actually what you were telling us about how to really, this book can help in building relationship. It was very important and still very important. My question is, what changed since then in what you know about the Enneagram, about people, about relationship? What changed since then?
That's good. Let me think. Well, again, I go to science. There's an understanding now that people influence each other in different ways. Like if somebody is very distraught, very, very upset about something, let's say it's a 1 who is, hadn't done something perfectly and, with great integrity, and feels so ashamed of that and just unravels. That's the perfectionist type. So the unraveling can be that you relax into yourself and you relax that very impressive distress inside of yourself. It's very impressive when somebody actually can change. Yeah. Now science comes in and says, you can intervene and relax your resistance. That's the key word, your resistance to reality. Well, but then I'll just be overwhelmed with everybody knowing my, my imperfections. It'll show to everybody. They'll be repelled by me. That's a myth. But the idea behind it is if I change, somehow I'll be so changed, that nobody will like me anymore. Now you have to ask yourself, is that true? Or is that just an idea that most people have about change? So I would say that the consciousness of the whole planet has changed much more toward trying to relax resistance in yourself rather than attacking or running away from somebody else. But we have these hidden pockets, within ourselves, and that's true. And if the resistance is very strong, it will break a relationship. What will make a relationship is being able to tell the truth at all times. Now, you don't have to burden somebody with your problems. That's not it. But for example, in a relationship, maybe it's just starting out and you like this person, you can inquire, you can ask, what is it about me that you like? And what is it about me that might be a difficulty? It doesn't mean that you have to get married tomorrow. It just means you're getting information. That's a good intervention, actually. Yeah. And what do I like about you? Let me tell you. And what am I curious about? Can you fill me in on the way you behave in this way or how you think about that? It's a very intimate exchange that usually works. It's not a guiding theme in many cultures to be able to actually ask. But if you have, a good time together and a few different experiences with each other, you can ask, what are you enjoying about this? I'll tell you what I'm enjoying about this, this thing that we're doing together, what would you improve if you could? I'll tell you what I think could change a little bit, make it better. It's that kind of self-reflection and speaking out loud. Finding a time when you can speak out loud that's quite intimate. Yeah. And then you might discover more about how they think, how the partner thinks, and how they feel about things. Now, this is tricky because if you're a 2 on the Enneagram, the helper, then you see, you know exactly how to shapeshift yourself in order to be the perfect giver. So it's tricky. But if you don't have some introspection about, I don't even really know who I am or what I am so solidly as how I can be in the eyes of another person. And I can look like that, and I can speak like that, and I can take on the persona of somebody who would be approved of. And I'm losing myself in the meantime. They don't know me. They know my adaptation to please them. And that's a difficulty. Or if you're another type on the Enneagram, like what should we take? Give me a number.
9.
9. Oh, yeah. Well, if you're a 9, and conflict aversive, difficulty with, interaction, arguments, and will do anything at the beginning of a relationship to keep an opinion away that would contradict the opinion of the other, and therefore create distance. And there, it's a whole mindset on the part of the 9. If I speak up and get what I want, instead of going along to get along with another person, if I speak up, it's all over. 10 minutes, it'll be gone. There's a resistance, ironclad existence. It's an anger type. It's an ironclad resistance about speaking up what you want, because it might divide you from what somebody else wants. And that's a myth. We want to know your opinion. We want you to go along with us, but the 9 also can be very stubborn. Don't ask me. I'm not going to tell you, and don't ask me. So nobody, and 9s are usually quite popular in the society because they don't resist you. They go along. They don't. But this is building. The anger is building inside. I don't like this, but I don't want to be separate. I do not want to be separated. So that's the 9. And if you just have a little conversation with somebody and you say, well, they can't go first. I mean, it just doesn't cross their mind. But this is what I liked about this evening. What did you think about it? I mean, just that resistance would be huge. Yeah. Because it might divide me from somebody I like. So you can see where over time, let's say you get into a deeper relationship, you don't know much about the 9 because they haven't really examined what they want very much. They're too busy accommodating, you see? Now the 2 is a shapeshifter. They can, they can shift their persona and their attitude and their appearance in any number of ways. They don't know they're doing that. That's an unconscious adaptation from childhood. And to get rid of it would be, I'll never have a friend again. That's the illusion. Yeah. And the 9 is looking sort of the same as a 2. They adapt as well. But no, they're taking on board information, but I'm not telling you. Yeah. I'm not telling you what I really think, because that might lead to separation. Mm-hmm. The 2 would just go on to the next relationship because they're very adaptable and very pleasing and very outgoing. The 9 kind of waits for you to come to them. It's like that.
And I usually hear you say in multiple incidents that and you led a wonderful meditation before with us about compassion to me first. What's the power of compassion in relationships?
Well, compassion, first of all, has to start with yourself. You can't go in ironclad, I'm going to be compassionate. That isn't going to work. But if you have some compassion for yourself, like, what if this doesn't work out? How would I feel about that? Yeah. What if this does work out? How would I be excited and energized and move toward that? So you make a little evaluation. How is this other person affecting me? Is important. You don't have to say that, but you have to register it. Yeah. Compassion for the self means I have to understand what I want here. I have to understand my motives here. If you read about the Enneagram and the types in relationship to each other, you'll see there's a lot of motives, unconscious motives that we don't know about. And psychiatry, thank God, has caught up and they have something to say about that. It's not just diagnosing black and white, but there's a layering of different kinds of reactions to things. And if you look at the book, you can see, oh, one of these layers of feeling that I have, it leads to another layer. It leads to another layer. Let's examine those. Let's see if that really is true for me. That's how you find your type. Like layers of being able for a 5 who's very unhooked from relationship in many ways. The 5 is the what they call the avarice type, or the holding my own energy to myself, my own thoughts to myself, my own revealing of myself to other people. You see, is very hard to get through to me because I'm very tender inside and I'm afraid of being hurt. So compassion looks like, well, maybe you'll be hurt. What's the big deal? Self-compassion, like face it and come in and relax down and, oh my God, what if somebody says something bad about me, or they'll talk about me, or this is the 5, right? Well, that's happened before. You're very afraid of it, very armored against a kind of intimacy because you don't want everybody knowing about who you are. Well, do you know who you are, Mr. 5? Could you come inside yourself? And could you do a little prayer inside to relax into that I will not be seen, I will not let people see me stance, into, well, what's good about me that I wouldn't mind being seen as? It's got to be in there somewhere. But then they'll take all of me. They'll get inside of me and they'll drain me dry. They'll drain my time. They'll drain my energy. They'll drain my resources. They'll drain me. Is that true? Could you come inside and just relax a little bit? Okay, you counsel yourself. Self-compassion is largely a compassionate thing. Like, well, you do want to make this relationship. And at your work, you show up a lot because it's all very cut and dried. It's all about the job. Nobody knows anything about you, the 5. So how about a little bit revealing of the personal? Yeah. Well, it's very terrifying to a 5 and very rewarding to be able to go in and say, well, I don't have to be afraid or hiding myself anymore because I like me. That's the self-compassion. I like me. And it has to come first. I have worth. And the 9 has to have worth, like going along with other, or just not confronting other people's agendas. You say, that's not comfortable for me. And you can find ways of just saying, like, I didn't like that. Or can you explain this to me, why you did this? It's very simple. But it doesn't occur to us because we're running on automatic. It's easy for the 5 to go home and withdraw. It's easy for the 9 to stay by, have very strong boundaries and stay going along, yes, but not initiating or contributing what he has to the world.
Yeah, I'm getting a question about 7. How do they feel?
Does it sound familiar? Yeah. Well, 7s, just going back to that recognition thing, the science, I'm determined, Tamir, that I'm going to give you some science to be able to really legitimatize this. Yeah. So the baby that could recognize the face of the mother, but not the stranger, and rejected the stranger. See, now science did that. Well, science has a lot to say about, give me your question again. I'll give it to you back in science.
Yeah, I mean, how does 7 act in a relationship? How do they feel in relationship?
Yes. Well, little babies also had, there's a big experiment in science called temperament. And this is babies under the age of 4 months. Yeah. Amazing. Temperament. And it had a lot to say about attention, that you're born with a specific way, according to your type, of paying attention to things. Okay, now the 7 in this temperament study, which I could give you the reference to if you want, because it's highly published now. But the 7, they used a little, like a pretty bubble, colored bubble or something beautiful to look at. And here's a little 4-month-old baby on their back, right? And they dance with this little bubble. And the 7 is riveted. They move the bubble over here, goes over there, looks over there, looks in the other direction, goes over there. It's delighted with this colorful moving object, which is really all they can see at that age, right? And after a while of doing this, they get bored. They don't like the object anymore, and they go, yeah. They don't follow it anymore, and they just go, just disinterested. And that's the attention way of paying in a relationship. Sevens have. You get fascinated with somebody. You get fascinated with Helen Palmer, who wrote a book, right? So you move heaven and earth to get me here, right? I'm not that easy to get, and I'm old. I like my solitude, right? But you persisted, okay. But, like I could dance around, I could give you a few things, but pretty soon you're going to get bored with me. Yeah, I've heard what she said. Who's next? It's like that for a 7.
But how did this work in long-term relationships like marriage?
Yes, and I can give you a list of successful 7 marriages. Just
my wife is a 7. My wife is a 7.
Yes, you find somebody who is equally interested in different things is the best medicine for a double 7. So interesting, because I did a study along the line. It might even be in the Love and Workbook, but like each type with doubles, double 4, double 1, double 3. I looked forever to find a double 8 couple.
Wow. Wow.
I sent the students out. Do you know anybody? The 7s were quite well represented because you're equally charming, and you could, well, let's have some fun. And it breaks the tension of boredom. Let's just go have some fun. Okay? And a 7 in a relationship with some other type, they provide not just entertainment, but they provide the idea of kind of lightheartedness. And let's have a good time about this. Maybe it's very difficult, but let's make it interesting. Yeah.
Helen, speaking of that, are there any types that cannot go together in a relationship, or there is a preferred types to go together in relationships?
I don't know that, I'd have to do a mammoth study of hundreds and hundreds of couples. I'm not going to do it. Maybe you will want to do it. But there are common couples. Yeah. Double 5 withdrawal. The home is the castle. It's very predictable. They have separate rooms of, different studies, maybe, they're not around each other all the time, but they respect each other's silence and privacy, and they talk about significant things. That's pretty common. But as far as numbers and how many are, married to 4s instead of 5s, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. But there are antithetical couples, that don't get along too well.
We start to getting some questions here about the doubles. So how about the relationship between a 3 and 8? 3
and 8.
Yeah, especially if a 3 is a woman.
Well, the 3 better be a woman, in this relationship. Right. 3 and 8. Okay. Well, the 8 is possessive. The 8 is very protective. The 8 wants to have his needs met. He wants to, and he's very forthright about that. There's no hidden agendas with an 8 much, especially at home. So what you think about other people, you want to be understood without, all of that. Now the 3, may appreciate, the sturdiness of an 8's commitment. Once they're married and they're there for a while, they tend to commit. And like, this is my beloved, period. Don't mess with it. That kind of thing. They may not be very schmoozy, that kind of thing. But the 3 is all about shape-shifting. And the 3 is very image conscious. It's all about how I'm perceived out there in the work world, or how I'm perceived in my relationship. And if the 3 can make the 8, the confident, make him confidential and tell him about, the different things that are happening out there in the world, because changing your not your appearance so much, but changing the way that you behave with other people. Depends on who they are. You want to please them. And you want to be a winner. And an 8's like winners, you know, so they're going to be enrolled in that. But you have to be a winner. It could be you won the bake sale, you know, at a charity ball, you know, I won, you know. It's very important to be first in something. Yeah. And the 8 will say, look, you're my little champion, you know, and I love you, and you're, you know, you're precious to me. He's like her fan, you know, he's her fan base. If it works like that, it's great. If an 8 gets sort of grumpy, you see, it's going to be difficult, because the 3's way of being first is not what he needs at that time. Yeah. What he needs is somebody who will say, I love you, right or wrong. You have protected me. You have to use, you know, the right terms. You have paid attention to me. You've been my, you know, dear heart for a very long time, if that's the case. And, you know, like, I appreciate this so much. I appreciate you for your protection, your commitment, your forthright stating what you think and what you feel. And the fact that that 8s tend to get onto a work or a project, and they really put all the investment in it. Now that's where 3 and 8 match, you know. They get into a project and they really, you know, could do it together. But the shape-shifting part, you know, is could be distressing to the 8.
Yeah.
So Helen, we're getting lots of questions. We're getting lots of questions about combinations, and if we keep on asking them, we'll ask you about 81 questions, which is 9
No, we don't want
multiplied
81
by
questions. You know. What we do want is, you know, what we do want is, are you sure of your type? We want that.
That's a very good question. Let me move to another dimension that you can relate to, and I guess the Egyptian society is also living something similar. Remember the Me Too campaign in the United States?
Yeah.
Having something similar to that happening in the Egyptian society nowadays, which is basically sexual harassment or even raping or whatever. This kind of aggressive or imposing or controlling or shaming kind of relationships. I mean, what's your experience with different types and how to really go about that?
You need allies. You definitely need allies. There will be some men who will be your allies, but it will be primarily women. That's good, as long as there is some participation on the part of men in what has to become an organization. It can't just be, you know, in the news and go away again. There has to be a containment of reaching out to the general public, which it sounds like is already happening, that women are protesting. Now, protest, you know, is can be handled in a very feminine way. You know, these are the facts. This is what it did to me. Don't whine and don't cry. This is what happened to me. It's a fact. I need to have representation in court. Will somebody defend me there? And will my women friends come with me into the court and sit down and stay with me? It's kind of along that theme that the Me Too has been successful in the US. It's quite an organization now. I would not try to do this alone if it's just beginning, for example, to come into the public view. I would never suggest that you try this as a lone or a very small group. I would suggest that you call the Me Too in America and find out what they did. I would suggest very much that you go to men who are sympathetic to this, perhaps in a business world, which is very strong out here, Well, you have to sleep with me before you can hold your job. It was that simple, you know, and if you don't, you're out, you see. But Me Too did something about this, and I'm not the proper authority to go to, you might say, about exactly how they handled it. But I do know that Me Too is on many, many televised events now as a public force. And you have to be very careful that you have evidence before you ever suggest that this happened. Witnesses, evidence, because you will be shamed. The early adopter, the early ones who go first, they were shamed. Well, you just lied about it. You're just trying to get, you know, back at me because you weren't capable in the office and I fired you. That was the unfortunate experience at the beginning. But it was so meaningful to so many women in the workplace, particularly, that this was occurring, that they formed an organization. You need, you know, you don't have to be the head of an organization and call it Me Too. You know, you don't have to do that. But you have to know what was the significant path from those who have already gone along that path. The Me Too organization is highly successful in it. You know, and some of the accusations that I heard from women, you know, in the organization, they were lies, or they were fabrications. They were out of being vindictive or angry. You know, they had been left out, or they had been, you know, looked over, or they were too old, or they were too something, you know, that you weren't attractive anymore. Some nonsense, you know, that had nothing to do with their skill level, their credibility in the workplace, or could they do the job. It had nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm. So how do types play out in these situations? I mean, let me imagine the situation of a woman being subject to a kind of sexual harassment.
Yes.
So here's the type of the man and the type of the woman. And
No. I'm not going to put type on this. Go away from that. Tamir is wrong. Don't do that to me. No, it's not like all 8s are, you know, sexual harassers and all 2s are wimps, ladies, you know. It does not work. It's not gender related.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Type is not gender related.
So, I mean, like, would it be a different type? I mean, a type of traumas or reactions according to the type? Is there something out of consciousness women can do so really overcome their fear that comes from the type?
Yes, you can adopt a women's groups, and you should get somebody who is good enough to be able to find out the type of the woman, because every man, woman, child experiences trauma differently. Same trauma, different reaction. It's very personal, this stuff. You see, so it's not really so much the type, it's the resilience that you have, you know? Like Me Too didn't come out of thin air. It came into being through women who had resilience. Okay, this happened. Well, I'm just it's not fight back. That's a man's job, you know, don't go there. But to say the story publicly, and to be able to say this could happen to you, and how can we protect ourselves? And to enroll men, particularly if they happen to be lawyers, that would be fantastic. It's a structural build, like this is not okay in the workplace. And what you want is to influence in the workplace other women who would say, no, and I have a resource. It hasn't happened yet, but it will. I have a resource of someone in the hiring and firing apparatus of the company, and I can go there and I can tell them my story. It doesn't have to go public. It doesn't have to be terrible, but you cannot fire me because I wouldn't sleep with you. Mm-hmm. I have a resource. You have to build that in the organization. That resource has to occur. Yeah.
Helen, how can the instincts play a role in the relationship between two long-term partners?
Well, I've been married almost 50 years. Do I qualify?
Absolutely.
Definitely you qualify for that. The question is about the instinct, the sexual instinct, the self-expressed, and the one-to and the
Yeah, the one.
social.
I'm a
You are
one-to.
one-to-one.
Yeah.
How does the relationship? How does the instinct play in the relationship between partners?
With long-term partners. Yeah. Is that the question? How does it play
Yes.
out relationship with it on the long term? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think the most lasting quality over time, which is not in the young person dating, and it's not in their mind. What they're interested in. Do you like me? Or am I attractive? Where can we, meet and do things together? That's the young one. But as it matures, you have to find a quality in your partner that is extremely healing to you, I would say. Yeah. And that's on both sides. Yeah. Now, my interest in prayer and meditation and how I brought that into my marriage, it was important to my husband because he was very aversive at the beginning, And so I said, well, I'm just going into my office, and I'm just going to close my eyes and I'm going to meditate for a while. What are you doing in there? It's like that was on the plate, right? Well, I'm meditating. What's that? Now we were pretty young at the time that we got married, so I knew that he was curious. I looked at it, and it wasn't that he was enraged. It wasn't that he was, going to break up because I was meditating in my office. None of that. He was interested and curious, but it came out in male 8 full blast. Like, why aren't I doing that? Like, why aren't I more important? I mean, he thought my meditation was going to interfere. Not that it would lead to anything, because he didn't like to meditate. He didn't like to go in and be relaxed and receptive, he had to be out there leading the charge. So, and I knew that. I knew that about him. I was into the Enneagram at the time, and I actually loved him for it because I felt protected. Look what I got here in case something really happens, like this is the best protector a 6 anxiety type could find, right? So it's like you find the good thing, like the intention. He wasn't trying to harm me or make me stop. He was just like ashamed to say, I'd like to do that too, at the age that he was, and being so full of himself as he was at the time,
So
But,
we got
yeah.
we got few questions here. I mean, we would like to ask the questions of the audience before we finish, because we're having like 35 minutes or so, 25 minutes. So one question is saying, what if I get feedback from a person that I'm in a relationship with, and this person would like me to change something that I perceive good in me or a behavior, even though it's no longer present? Sorry?
Say it again, in slower and louder.
What if you do get feedback and you self-reflect upon that feedback and realize that changing that part is good? How can you change people's perception of that old behavior? So it's like, I want to change, but people are still keeping the perception. How do I deal with this?
Well, it's not going to change it just because you change your mind. It's not going to change their perception of you immediately. I mean, let's be clear about that. She didn't say what was the
She's giving an example. If you want me to read the example.
Mm-hmm.
So she's saying, for example, someone who used to have conflicts with peers or managers and then manages to avoid conflict. But the perception of that person is always that they are a conflict maker.
The perception of the person who doesn't want to make conflict.
Yeah, they changed into not making conflict, but still the perception is there.
Is there.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, the time element is big, you know, like if you, and the impatience in the person who's asking the question, the impatience, you know, of having to wait it out until everybody says their piece or the conflict gets managed or something like that. She would just jump in, you know, in the past. Okay, you can't do that because you lose your job, right? But the task for her is to look inside of herself. This is a very good timing, by the way, very good timing for her development, to shift her attention in and to relax down and say, okay, why do I jump so quickly in? Am I afraid and I want to lead the charge so that I don't have to be afraid? Possible. Am I, you know, just irritated that people can't solve these obvious questions? Am I a little bit, you know, perfectionist here, you know, to judge what other people do? Am I the only one who's going to speak up, you know, and nobody else, everybody else is just going to go along with this? I can't have that. Those are all anger-based responses or distress signals inside of her. I have to do something about this. Yeah, distress signals. Relax the distress. Doesn't matter what the conflict's about, the content, the story. It matters her reaction to it, yeah? And this is upsetting, you know, to her beloved person, you know, the person that she's attracted to. So now, if she could just get the uprising of the urgency to make her voice heard, to solve the situation, practice instead by yourself alone, that you can come in and you can imagine the situation, reimagine it. Now, it won't be worth all of that charge of energy, you know, when she's just reviewing it. But she could say, now, where in my body was I contracted? Where was I holding on, you know, like a fist, you know, trying not to say something. Then all of a sudden I blurted it out, you know, because I had to. No, you find the place in the body where the contraction occurs, because you can't jump into action without having some contraction against alternative views. Yeah, alternative views and also energetic life force. So she has to come in and find the place. It's usually around the shoulders, you know, like, or in the solar plexus, as I said before, or the neck, you know, or some place in the body we're holding on here with anger, or a kind of terror. Maybe it won't get solved and it'll just sit here. You know, I have to be the one to say something. No, you don't. Relax the tension that makes you say something and see what happens. Let's see if the situation gets solved some other way. Mm-hmm. Let's wait and watch. This is not her cup of tea. She don't want to wait and watch. But it would be very useful here, just as an experiment. And she may have had the right solution, but that's not the point. The point was the delivery, how she came out with it. Yeah? Because it feels demeaning to other people. Yeah. And she never meant to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question about a paper you have published years ago about relationship between Evagrius models and some relationship with planets and astrology.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
So actually, the question is, do you see an effect on types by the astrological signs? Do you see any effect of one of the model on the other?
I'm not into it. I'm not into it. I do know that each type on, you know, the 9-pointed chart, each type is named. The days of the week are named. 7 days are named for planets. And my personal opinion, because I'm not into predictions of events, although the pandemic could have been predicted by you know, 10,000 astrologers. we would be better prepared. But we're not, you know. But I want to say one thing about the planets. Yes, the types are named by a planet, yeah, or the sun and the moon, which are, and the moon has 3 phases. So we have 5 moving bodies that you can see with the naked eye up there if you lie on your back someplace in Egypt, maybe, where there's lots of sand, and you can see it up there on a clear night. 5 moving bodies. The sun and the moon, 2 luminaries. And the moon has 3 phases to a total of 9. So we have 9 different placements on a chart. That's all I know. But I do know that those moving bodies are energetic. They affect each other and they affect our planet as well. The universal energy is there, and we inhabit the universal energy. And we're in a place of decay at the moment. You might have noticed that. It's not a great set of transits, an astrologer would say. But just on the basis of what we're seeing in the world, there's an immense amount of conflict, war. There's pestilence, which is the pandemic. There's many negative things.
Racism.
Race. Well, you don't have so much racism as we got over here. You know, that's it, because everybody, you know, we're massive immigration, and it's a big problem. Yes, it's stirring the pot of all of those old-fashioned ways of doing things. No, I don't see I know there are people who do it, who do horoscope according to your type, but I don't do that. I just want the freedom of being able to witness this key, pure awareness of the witnessing consciousness, to watch my thoughts. And I don't care if it's under good transit or bad transit. I want to watch my thought. And if I'm suffering, I want to relax the suffering. And I want to be free regardless of outer circumstance. Though I know I'm guided by outer circumstance, I don't want to submit to it. I want to be able to do my best to be able to stay grounded and receptive and to go onward. Yeah.
Yeah, allow me one more very intriguing question here by Alan Hodgetts. He says, can Helen put some light on the Islamic understanding of God consciousness, or as a Christian might understand fear of God, which really means awareness?
You know, I think I'm out of my depth here. I didn't expect a bunch of scholars to show up. And I thank you for that. I thank you for the question, Alan. I would say the unifying statement would be, it's a universal consciousness. That the consciousness of any living being, whether it's animal, plant, or human, is bound into the same energetic soup, the same energetic moment in time as all the other people and all the other animals and all the other plants. That we are unified at that level. Yeah, I do know that. I also know that there is a universal energy that most people are not aware of. They just don't take advantage of it. And I don't know how you live without it. But a universal consciousness also is moved by a universal energy. And when you come in, every religion agrees, and relax down through your body and lose your thoughts, let them go, and relax your emotions, especially if it's distress. Just relax right through it. And relax through the somatic, the physical constrictions in the body. You relax your head, your heart, your belly, your body. And in that state, you're free. You can think, but not much. Mainly there's joy in it, and there's pleasure in it, and that is universal to all beings. To be deprived of it, to be in the distress and constriction of the type structure is amazingly hard. So it's universal, and that's all I can say. I mean, you over there in Egypt, you know, and me over here, we could pray together in our way, which has to lose thoughts, feelings, sensations, which are busy driving us in automatic action. You know, you just relax it. And there is nothing there to be afraid of. So the counseling part of it is, you know, that all you're going to do is relax, contraction, and get joy. And I'm all in favor of that.
I would say one last question, because I know that you might take some time to answer it. I know that lately you are very much focusing on the topic of intuition.
Yeah.
And you've been really putting it at a great importance, studying it, practicing it, and working on it. What can you tell us about this topic?
Well, intuition has been a theme in my whole life. And I had a series of experiences, which I don't have to relate to you particularly because it's too long and telling. But I had a set of experiences after just having my son. And that period of my life was alive with precognition, which means you know what's going to happen before it happens. And it was alive in many other ways, in being able to, you know, leave the job that I was doing in preparing to be a psychological counselor. And I preferred to be an academic teacher. That was a huge decision. So I became an academic teacher. And in that, I was very interested in research. So one thing led to another. And I got back into, you know, areas where there was a pre-psychology. Well, how did they manage that? You know, and all of that. Now, my intuition, my ability to recognize, is based on the witness. Every religion has a prayer practice that is much the same as others, except for the ritual part. But the technique, the method, is the same. Can't be otherwise. Let your conditioned mind, your automatic mind, relax. Receive what is objectively true. But it's not in thoughts. It's not in emotions. It's not in sensations. So that interface between relaxing the thoughts, feelings, sensations machine and coming into a receiving experience, that's it. The absence of the cover, which is the type structure. That receiving experience can connect you to anything. The past, the future, the distant, the unknown. And it's a place that many people go to in times of deep creativity. They just bang themselves against the wall, doesn't work, they let go, and all of a sudden the great idea appears. Or you receive a message, so to speak. It's a knowing. It is not a thought, it's a knowing without thought. That is intuition. And I'm all in favor of that because you can train it. You know, I'm not so good on the influences, the horoscopes. I'm not so good, although they're true, you know, they don't, it's not where I live. I live in a place that is not bound to prediction by the mechanics of things. It's by direct reception, which is intuition. Everyone has the capacity. Nobody is without it. People operate subliminally upon their intuition. They don't even know they are. It's a wonderful guidance if you can get in, not in control of it, but you can be mindful of how to enter the state. The state is prayer, but it's not praying out there to a statue. It's praying in here by relaxing resistance. Let thoughts go, let emotions go, let sensations go. Relaxing resistance, me, my structure. And getting into a deep reverie where you have to introduce a single pointed concentration point. You can only do one thing at a time internally, but you can focus deeply on the one thing and it will receive you and let you know, not a thought, a knowing, let you know. And there are techniques, like visualization is a technique. That happens to be my strength. I'm not so good on the other techniques. You don't need them all. You need one good one. But a single pointed image or impression of a scene or a person or a question, and I have to stay with it until it begins to impress me before I know what I will see. The witness is the most important thing we've said all afternoon. The witness says, I can receive impressions of accuracy in the present moment because I'm connected to everything. But I have to stabilize only one thing at a time. Single pointed concentration introduced into an empty field of receptive awareness, underlined word, receiving awareness, where the object, the image, looks at me, so to speak. It shows me something before I have any idea what's going to show up on the screen. And it turns out to be much more objective than my speculations, my projections, etc., which are also there, but not at the same time. That is intuition. It's received knowing. I'm all for it. It's a state that anyone who is interested in prayer could enter, but they have not been taught how. We're praying out here instead of receiving in here to the state of being able to focus on one thing only, everything else goes away. And then you are in a relationship with an object of your contemplation internally, very useful insight. And you can inquire about different things inside, but only one at a time. And it is not an easy passage because the ego structure, the type structure, opposes this. Don't go there. Warnings, don't go there. It comes back on you very quickly. So some prolonged meditation practice, which could be 20 minutes, half an hour a day, but sincerely done, it can put you in a very different state. And you see the payoff for that in the real world of being able to recognize, I'm going on automatic. I would like to relax my resistance to this and be more objective about what I'm receiving. The payoff is you are more objective in the real world and much less disturbed about other people's behaviors. Intuition is a doable level of consciousness that anybody can reach.
Wow.
It's not that special.
That is so profound. Thank you so much for that, Helen. Intuition is a doable level of consciousness. I like it.
Yeah.
I really do. Thank you so much for
Bye-bye.
sharing, and thank you so much for such a really nice evening. And we really are blessed by having you here with us in this evening. Thank you so much for sharing and for being with us. It really, really added a lot to our understanding and to the community here in Egypt. And I'd like to take this and thank Diwan for hosting us, Amal and all the team from Diwan Bookstores in Egypt. And thank you, Tamer, for such an amazing organization today and coordination with Helen. I kept following the thread of emails between yourself and her. And thank you for everyone for being with us here. It was really a pleasure having you all and learning directly from Helen.
Wonderful that they come to find out about their type. It's wonderful. It's a big step in consciousness. Yeah.
Thank you, Helen. Really, thank you. And we would love to have
Isn't it
you
lovely?
again with us again in the future, hopefully in the near future.
Hopefully, I'm 83 years old. You better get moving quickly. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
Thank you. We love you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
I love Tamir and he's just so, he looks down and he's thinking. And I just love Tamir. And this guy is the same.